thank you guys for all your comments and your votes on the bracket, which is located at broforcesquad.com, as well as on our social media pages, Facebook, at broforcesquad, on Twitter. Today, we've got a special show for you guys. I've got my main man, Jeff Hornacek, and my not main man, Matthew Geiger. We're going to read to you guys some of our favorite comments that you guys have left us on some of our matchups. First matchup of the day, we've got Crow versus Punisher. First quote we've got from Stephen Howlett, and I apologize if I butcher anybody's name.
Because we will.
I don't know. Because we will, and I don't really know how to read, and I've been drinking relatively heavily, but not that much, but a lot. Stephen's quote is, "The Crow, one of my all-time favorite movies. Just wish Brandon Lee was still with us. Couldn't agree with you more." Guys, do we have any other comments on that? Everything that went down with Brandon Lee? Jeff, go ahead.
So I'll get this to Geiger real quick because this is kind of his bread and butter, this movie. But obviously, the thing that I like seeing, and I'll let Geiger touch on the Brandon Lee situation, which obviously was tragic, but this was big for me because at the time I did not realize that The Crow was an Image Comics publication, which is an independent publishing label. It's kind of crazy to me that even then a smaller player in the comic space could get a movie like this made. I wish we would see more of it. Image also has Spawn, of course, and I think it was a big sign and obviously a huge win for smaller indie comic labels. Geiger, I know you want to touch on the Brandon Lee situation.
Well, yeah, just touch on this. These are the first comic book movies made besides the original Supermans. So Batman goes with their first, Warner Brothers goes with their first player, Batman. Marvel goes with their, 15th player in Blade? And then Image Comics, why was Image Comics even involved in this, goes with The Crow, that not a lot of people knew during that time. And I watched this movie about a week ago, and on the back it says, the best movie since the original Batman. And I have to fucking agree with it. It looks just like a Warner Brothers, Tim Burton fucking movie in the Batman universe. It's fantastic. Brandon Lee owns that role. I would say the only other person, I'm not going to say they're better, they're on the equal wavelength that's ever owned a role like that, is Heath Ledger Joker. Brandon Lee, Crow, and Heath Ledger Joker should be up for who could play a comic book person better than fucking anybody else. It's tragic he died. It showed that he was the movie franchise. Once he died, the other ones just were fucking terrible. This movie is fantastic. And the also, Banner always talks about the score. I'm a stickler for the music they put in there, and it's like Deftones, it's Stone Temple Pilots. It fucking fits the 90s scene so fucking well, the grungy scene. It's a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it.
That's a good point with the score. And that actually leads us into our next fan comment here. Damian Mancini, and again, if I butchered that, I'm sorry, not sorry, but I'm sorry. He says, "The Punisher for the score and this scene alone," and he posted the YouTube video of the scene when Frank Castle is writing the letter, basically saying Frank Castle is dead, only the Punisher survives. And the score, especially during that scene and throughout the whole movie, just takes the cake. It's one of the top ones in comic movie in general. Jeff, I'm going to throw it over to you to talk about the scene because I know this one's near and dear to your heart.
So Geiger must love the Thomas Jane Punisher because it is the epitome of a slow cook as well for an origin story. He does not truly become the Punisher until this scene, which is about halfway through the film, if not a little bit further. And it's just great. I mean, you feel everything that he feels at that moment because they've spent so long setting it up. Damien, I'm glad you sent it over because originally I had thought that the best scene in this movie was at the end when he ties, spoiler alert, Travolta to the back of that car and puts it in drive and lets it go into the building that's about to burn to the ground.
A la Crow.
Exactly.
Crow did that first.
Yeah, but this is, I think, the best scene in the movie and sets the tone for the movie, and I'm really glad that I got to revisit it, so thank you to Damien.
This matchup should have been in the Final Four. This is a Final Four matchup. Both these movies are very fucking well done. Now, I've been on the record before, and I'll say it again. Thomas Jane Punisher, in my opinion, is the best Punisher. Bernthal is really ruthless, but so is Thomas Jane. But Thomas Jane had a plan this whole time and made his own cronies kill himself because he made the gay assistant from Remember the Titans think that he was fucking Travolta's wife the whole time and then made him kill his number 2 guy. This movie was fantastic. And if you go back and rewatch it, I guarantee you after watching these Marvel films that weren't even in existence right now, this is way before the first Iron Man, that you would want Thomas Jane in this universe. I'd rather see Thomas Jane in Infinity War than Bernthal. I'm just going to say it. I love Bernthal. I love what he's doing, but this movie is fucking fantastic. This is a fantastic movie, and I'm really sad that it's out, because if it was in any other matchup besides the Crow in the first round, it could have maybe made the Sweet 16. This movie could have won 2 matchups for sure.
And that's all we have to say about Crow Punisher, guys. Again, this one, we scored it by the fans. All your guys' votes added up on all our social media platforms. Crow's taking it 98-53. Crow is moving on. Keep it up. And again, you can do that at Bro4 Squad on Twitter, as well as our Facebook's Bro4 Squad page. Next matchup we've got is Iron Man 2 versus Ant-Man. This was a tough one, guys.
Oh, yeah.
First fan quote we have here is from Griffin Goldstein. And I just like this because it made me laugh. He says, Ant-Man, this is a joke, right?
Griffin is like, why the fuck are you wasting my time with this?
Yeah, which I think is really funny because you have Tony Stark and then you have
Scott Lang,
which is Paul Rudd. I kept wanting to say Paul Rudd, but you have Downey Jr., Paul Rudd, probably the 2 funniest people in the MCU going up against each other, and he makes a joke about this being a joke. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, Griffin hit the nail on the head.
Next quote we have is from Ransom Leo Shields. It's a little bit of a long one, guys, but he made some really good points. He says, I love Robert Downey Jr. He is a great actor and nailed the part of Iron Man and Tony Stark. But seriously, Paul Rudd, he literally came out of left field in the role for Ant-Man. I never thought of liking the movie. I saw the previews and I was like not all that enthralled. All that being said, I was thoroughly wrong about Paul Rudd. He nailed the part of Ant-Man, and I fucking love that movie. Just a really good movie, and I was not expecting that. Guys, I couldn't agree more with that. Ant-Man did come out of left field. It was actually supposed to start the entire MCU. I'm glad that they waited and did it when they did it. But again, Paul Rudd just nailed the part of Scott Lang. Geiger, I know you're quote-unquote the comedic one on the show, even though you're not funny.
Geiger, you think this is Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance as Tony Stark?
This is his best performance as not Iron Man, but as Tony Stark, in my opinion. So many fucking one-liners, so many great ones. How, the reporter says, or he was with Pepper, and Pepper's like, yeah, he did quite a spread on Tony last year, and Tony's like, yeah, she also did an article as well. Him and Sam Rockwell was fucking perfect. And, back in our Sin City thing that I'm glad it's moving on to the next round, Mickey Rourke is my fucking boy. He was underutilized. But Mickey Rourke was very underutilized in this movie. But what he was, a la Jared Leto in Suicide Squad, I fucking loved. The best scene, in my opinion, was when he had the toothpick in his mouth and went on this fucking NASCAR run and just split 2 cars in fucking half. And then almost killed Iron Man. And it finally was the U.S. government saying, you don't have this power anymore. Someone else fucking figured this out and almost did it better than you. I thought this was a fantastic movie. I love Iron Man 2. Maybe I love it better than Iron Man 3. It's very close to Iron Man 1 for me. I just don't understand why so many people shit on it all the time.
I love it too. I get that it's like a setup to the Avengers, but I love that about it. So maybe I'm just in the minority there.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you are.
Good too, but I just thought Iron Man 2 was better.
I mean, if you're going off of our grading criteria, impact on pop culture is one of the categories. You have to give that to Iron Man because, again, it is what catapulted. It was the springboard into the Avengers. Without Iron Man 2, the Avengers wouldn't make sense. Whereas Ant-Man, yeah, it's there and it introduces him for Civil War, but it isn't a catalyst as much as Iron Man 2. Next fan quote for this matchup, we have Kelvin McBride, and he says, can I vote which one sucked the most? LOL. Seriously, I recently rewatched Iron Man 2 the other day to see if it sucked as bad as I thought, and it has its moments, which are very few, but overall bad advertisement for the Avengers mainly, and some dialed-in performances. I would also like to make note here, went back, looked at the voting. Kelvin, you didn't fucking vote for a single one, so we're done talking about you.
That's his vote.
Although, Kelvin, you cracked me up. Vote next time. We love you, bro.
That's his vote, man.
Yeah, the comment was great, but throw a vote out there. We would appreciate it. Next one, that one we actually have Ant-Man moving on 88 to 53, which I think all three of us would disagree. But you guys are the fans. You guys spoke. We hear you roar. Ant-Man going on to the second round. Next matchup, we have Thor versus Hellboy.
Whew, we knew this was going to be a good one.
This is your 12-5. We may have a 12-5 upset out here. I don't know. Let's see. Tony Taylor says, Hellboy. It has better actors and was overly a fun movie. Hornacek, this is your wheelhouse. Take it.
Tony Taylor, we love you. There's going to be probably a million times on this show where you're right and we're wrong. This just isn't one of them. Thor, 2 Academy Award winners, Anthony Hopkins and Natalie Portman, and Hellboy, Ron Perlman, who's great in the role of Hellboy, but the second best actor is Selma Blair. It did not have better actors. I'm not saying it wasn't a better movie, but that's like not the argument to make.
I'll give you Anthony Hopkins, but Natalie Portman's a teeter-totter, man, because she mails in so many roles.
Fair enough, but Tom Hiddleston made up for
I can kind of see where he's going for.
Yeah.
That's okay, yeah.
All right, next one we have from David Ratkamp, and he says, I know nothing about the Hellboy comics, but I love the movie more than the first Thor flick.
Fair enough.
Can't argue with it.
I love when people say, like, I don't like the notion that, like, especially with these more obscure properties, that you have to read the comics to love the movie. I think the other way around, a lot of people went into Hellboy, maybe either not knowing it was a comic book movie or saying, I want to see what this is about. If I like it, I'll get into the comics. So I appreciate that David just came out and said, look, I didn't read Hellboy as a kid. It was not as easy to get, but I like this film.
This is a different conversation for a different time. I just want to bring it up very quickly, though. The Marvel movies I watch, I do not read Marvel comics anywhere close to what I read DC. The DC movies I watch, I'm just like, why did they do this? That's my favorite Superman. No, that's my favorite Batman comic. Just like I love BVS Batman more than I love Nolan's Batman because I like the more angrier Batman. When I go into Marvel films, especially like Ant-Man or Thor or something I never read about, I fucking dig them. Like, that's a cool story. But I haven't read 80 different adaptations where I'm like, oh, I wish they would have done this or that. Sometimes it's better to go in blind,
Totally
I think.
agree.
I can kind of see his point on that. Hellboy is a very, very, very fine film, for sure.
And it's another one that it was actually a Dark Horse comic, not knowing anything about the comic. So it's not your big name brand DC or Marvel. It's kind of like The Crow, where it's coming from one of the smaller independent comic books, and for them to do a good adaptation to where people who have never read the comics appreciate it and really enjoy it, that's fantastic.
The Mask was another Dark Horse comic too.
Yep, that's
Right.
another good one. Unfortunately, didn't make the cut for the tournament. Last one that we have on Thor Hellboy here is this one comes from Dave Hunt. Dave says, "This is one of the tougher ones for me." Agreed. I voted for Thor, but only because I'm a big fan of the comic. The Mighty Thor was the first Marvel title I bought after really getting into detective comics in 1987. Hellboy was probably a superior movie, but I had no love for the source material when I watched it. Looking at the percentages on the bracket, I may be the only one so far who did. Not quite true. We'll get to the score here in a minute, but that's another good impact on pop culture vote right there, is that, look, it may not have been as good, but it held something personally to you, which is awesome, and we appreciate you coming out and sharing that with all of us.
And Dave, that's really cool because it's nice, as Geiger was saying, to get to see both sides of it. Some people want to go into it maybe not knowing everything about the story and to meet a new character, and for you, you were excited to see this movie because you grew up on the Thor comics and loved them, and I think that's why we're doing this tournament, and more importantly, why we do this podcast, because we feel the same way, and this stuff is like so cool to us because we grew up on it. So thank you for the comment, Dave. Could not agree more.
Yeah, effects on pop culture, you gotta give it to Thor. Hellboy 2 was fucking terrible, and Thor is still going strong in the Avengers. So, I mean, if you can say what you want about the film, had an after credit scene that tied into the Avengers, the second after credits, or the Thor 2, I know that movie's not up for discussion, but had a great after credit scene. Thor kills it in pop culture, man. Very well casted, too.
Thor set up the villain for the Avengers, so yeah, that's a huge point right there.
Yeah, it's giant. Not quite big enough to move on to the second round, though, guys. Hellboy takes it 67-46. Hellboy is your 12-5 upset.
Wow.
Hellboy moving on to the second round. It's a big one. Big one. All right, guys. And here's our last fan vote for this show. And this is another one that's super, super fucking tight.
Wow.
We've got Spider-Man 2 versus Blade.
Wow. Great matchup.
Great matchup. I am glad that we gave this one to the fans because I don't know that I could have picked between these.
Once again, guys, these are round one matchups. Round one. These
Shit
matchups
is going to get real here in the next couple of weeks the deeper we get to this tournament.
And can we just say we loved all the fan comments, but we got some incredible ones for this matchup specifically.
Yeah. We did.
Like,
and guys, unfortunately, we're sorry we can't read all of your guys' comments, but keep them coming in. And again, we all discuss all of these at length off pod, and we kind of pick out the ones that mean something to us and that we think will resonate with all of the fans as a whole.
No
and
comment,
the first,
no tweet goes unread for sure.
Nothing
guys.
goes unread, guys. Don't worry about that. First comment we have for Spider-Man 2 vs. Blade is from Scott Crowell. And he said, while I liked both, I go with Spider-Man 2. The scene where he saves everyone on the train always put a limp in my throat.
a lump.
A lump in my throat. See, I'm fucking drunk. Why are we having me read these? I'm hammered.
You're the man.
You volunteered, which is also probably why you volunteered, because you're drunk.
Probably. Moving on, he also continues to say, then the people give him his mask, and they say, wow, fuck this. To take this over
and say they won't tell anyone what his face looks like, and then they step in front of Doc Ock to protect him. I remember that scene, and I remember you guys, being the Marvel fans, saying, this scene is the best scene in this entire tournament. Went back and watched it the other day. It's definitely top 5. It is a fucking fantastic scene. Spider-Man 2 is a very, very well done, great movie. Doc Ock is fantastic in it. One of my favorite Spider-Man villains too. So Scott, thank you for your comment. Totally agree with that. That scene is fan-fucking-tastic. It really is. Markel Daly, Blade is obviously
no way I can continue right now.
But Blade is honestly better than Spider-Man. Once again, I don't disagree with him on this either, man. Blade was a very, very well done movie, and when you're thinking of effects on pop culture, you might want to give it to Blade, because Blade's set up for better or for worse, showing what works and what doesn't work for future not only Marvel movies, but DC movies, Dark Horse movies, Image movies, and everything else.
Yeah, to that point, Markel especially, Blade was the first one through the wall for Marvel, and as we all know, that one always gets bloodied, so it's tougher for people to accept it. But it started this whole trend of Marvel heroes, and even as a kid, I didn't know that Blade was a Marvel superhero at the time when I saw the film, and I'll be the first to admit that I probably saw this movie at an age that I should not have seen this movie yet. But it's a great film. It was kind of the first foray into the Marvel movies, and I love Spider-Man 2, but Blade has this effect on pop culture because it's the first one there, and you can't replicate that. There's really no way.
And when we're talking about casting, Snipes is a better casted Blade than Tobey Maguire will ever be better casted Spider-Man.
I have to agree with that.
We're just talking about straight up fucking lead roles for sure.
Yeah, if you go pound for pound,
although
Snipes totally takes it.
Tobey Maguire is probably better at doing his income taxes.
Barely.
You want me to do Lamar Lee?
I'll try Lamar Lee. All right, I'm feeling better. I've got a sip of water, so let's see Lamar. And I wanna apologize to Scott here because I totally butchered that. And
actually, no, because Scott, because of you butchering me, have to come in. Everyone will remember that. So Scott is forever known now.
Scott's on the Broforce Squad Hall of Fame right now, and your first member.
Hall of Fame.
He's the only comment we couldn't read.
Although we're about to have another member here at the end of the pod, so I'll let you finish.
Yeah. Lamar Lee, he says, I have to go with Spider-Man 2 because of the epic feel of it. That said, I think the Blade films hold up better than the Spider-Man films. I watched the first Spider-Man film last week, and it has not aged well.
Which is true.
He continued to say, yeah, even Blade Trinity, with all of its faults, is indefinitely more watchable than Spider-Man 3, 2007. 2007 was not a good comic book year for movies, or comic book movie year. It had Spider-Man 3, Ghost Rider, Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, personal favorite. And thank you for 2008, which was an immense improvement. Lamar, I couldn't agree with you more in your 2007 comment. But yeah, Spider-Man 2 did have this epic feel. The stakes were higher, I think, than in the Blade film. And I agree that it had that good feel. I wouldn't say that it was an Empire feel, which a lot of people think second movies in trilogy should be. But it's definitely up there. And again, I love Doc Ock. I thought it was fantastic.
It's kind of crazy to me, and thank God in 2008 we got Batman Begins, which might have saved the genre after seeing that list of movies. But it's kind of crazy to think now we live in this glory age of comic book movies. That's why we're so spoiled. To think that, like, there was a time in 2007 when those movies came out that probably every studio was thinking, like, we need to get as fucking far away from a superhero movie as we can right now because these things are dog shit. Yeah. Thank God things got better in 08.
I like his comment, but Spider-Man 3 and Blade Trinity make the fucking tournament. With Spider-Man 3, they'll have their day in court. Blade Trinity, though, Ryan Reynolds, that's kind of was his forte into comic book movies and shit like that. So then, I mean, he's been Green Lantern, now he's Deadpool and everything else. But I do agree, this is a tough one, man, because it's just two different genres of movies. You got really dark, and then Spider-Man 2 is, I mean, it's not dark, but it's not poppy either. It's kind of a little bit of both. So I could see everyone's comment. I agree with everyone's comment on both of these because I like both of these films equally.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I'm glad that we didn't have to vote on this because it was so close in my mind. I kept flip-flopping back and forth. And that brings us to our last comment. And Jeff said it earlier, Robbie Long, you are going in the Bro Force Squad Hall of Fame. You actually made a meme for us that has Kanye West and Taylor Swift that says, Blade, I'm going to let you finish, but Spider-Man 2 is the better movie. That right there, whether you agree or disagree, is an epic way to make your case for a film.
Because
love you.
What did he do?
He didn't show us.
He didn't tell us.
Yeah. Robbie Long, you are a Hall of Famer. You are welcome on this pod anytime. I actually called Banner right after you posted that, and we started cracking up after having read it.
He called me at like midnight and was like, "Bro, are you asleep?" And I was like, "Of course I'm asleep. It's midnight." He goes, "You need to wake up and see this." So he dragged my ass out of bed. I went to the computer. I looked at it. Totally worth it. Robbie, thank you so much, and to all of our fans for all of your comments. Again, we love you all. Robbie, unfortunately, I'm sorry, but Blade won out 73-59. Again, another really tight, close matchup.
And I gotta say, I'm surprised by this. I thought Spider-Man 2 had a shot at the Sweet 16, maybe even the Elite 8.
I really did. This is a huge upset, man. I don't know how far Blade can go. I thought this movie, Spider-Man 2, with the right matchups, could even make it to the Elite 8, definitely Sweet 16. This is a huge fucking upset. Very interested to see how far Blade goes.
And it just shows why I'm glad that we left this one as a fan matchup, because we probably would have scored it differently, and we would have been wrong. So
100%. All right, guys, moving on to round 2. Out of this first round of fan votes, we have The Crow, we have Ant-Man, we have Hellboy, and we have Blade, all moving on to the second round. Guys, we love you. Keep the comments coming. Everybody, like I said, there is no comment that goes unread, no tweet that we don't see. We love all of you guys. Keep them coming. You can interact with us on our Facebook page, Bro4 Squad, 3 words. Our personal Facebook pages, Jeff Hornacek, Brian Banner. And don't forget, we're on Twitter at Bro4 Squad. Go and follow us there. We also are on YouTube. Go ahead and check us out there. Subscribe to us. Leave us comments on whether you agree or disagree with all of our matchups. And guys, do us a favor. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review. Show us some more love. We love you guys. As always, you guys can also find us www.bro4squad.com. We appreciate you guys. Keep the comments coming. We love you. We love you.